Cheers and welcome to Irondale Brewing. A little early in the day, but I'll say cheers anyway. What I'm going to talk about today is modifying a Fermonster that doesn't have a spigot to do closed transfers. I've been meaning to do this for a while. I've had the parts laying around for a while. Finally getting a day off of work and taking the time to do it. So I used to use this size Fermonster with a spigot, and I drilled one hole in this kind of lid for a gas post. And then basically when I wanted to do a closed transfer, I would just put a little bit of positive pressure with CO2 on top and then let it flow out the spigot. I thought I could do that a little bit better. So in this case, I have a closed Fermonster with no spigot. And don't worry, I'm going to zoom in so you can see all the parts when we start talking about the details. There are two holes in this lid. I'm going to put a liquid post in one, gas post in the other. And that way it'll act kind of like a DIY Fermzilla or other closed fermenters where basically you have a way to put gas into the system and then a dip tube, which just using to float it here, to have the beer come out. So a little bit nicer in terms of closed transfers and a little bit less concern about the spigot ever leaking, which mine never did, but I figured this will make it a little bit nicer. So again, I'll zoom in to talk about the parts here, but my plan is, and I'm just gonna throw a flash brewing kit in this one today, is just I've got this drilled, and then I got a liquid post and a gas post from Brew Hardware. I'll talk about the specifics when I get the angle so you can see better. And then, as I mentioned, float it with its dip tube that you stick in the post. This, I'm going to talk about why I got the specific things I did from Brew Hardware. This is just a regular, that one's gas post. And then I'm planning on just using a spunding valve. Interesting invention would be if somebody came up with a ball lock, air lock, but that's a whole different thing. But spunding valve will work. And then show you kind of when we're talking about getting the beer, back out and how this thing's going to function, a couple of those. So I think I'll stop there with the intro and we'll zoom in on the parts so you can see what's going on. Hopefully this will work well from the standpoint of the angle. It seemed to in my preview mode, but so basically I have the spigotless Fermonster off to the side. Idea is you get one of these solid lids, drill two holes. I don't remember the size off the top of my head, but I will put that on the screen, and I can't remember the name of the bit. It's like a Forster bit. I think that gives you a nice smooth hole, so you want to use that if possible. And then one will be for gas, one will be for liquid. And then I got these off of Brew Hardware. Now the reason, and one is gas and one is liquid, they come in a pair. Now the reason I got those is because the normal, this happens to be a gas post, you could use this, and maybe if you're handier with tools than I am, you could figure out how to do this. I could not get this thing to come apart where it needs to come apart to do the, do what we need to do. And the difference, of course, is this has a round smooth part, and these from Brew Hardware have nuts, so it makes it a lot easier to take those apart. So, and then, so that's, these will go in the top, obviously. I think that'll be visible. And then on the liquid side, we're going to put a floating dip tube. This happens to be a Float It. I can't recommend these enough. I have them for all my kegs. They're fantastic. And then the other piece of this is the thing that goes into the, I don't know the terminology, the thing goes into the post to connect the dip tube to the bottom. And that's about it, other than to mention I'm going to use for fermentation, I'm going to use a spunding valve. This is one of the Kegland blow tie spunding valves. They're really handy, pretty inexpensive. And I'm going to do a flash brewing kit in this one today. So, and then obviously as well, while it's fermenting, your gas post won't have anything on it. Your gas post will have the spunding valve on it. The liquid post will just be empty until you need to get the beer out of there. And then, we'll see this in action. But a couple of these, and you got yourself a handy DIY Fermzilla type fermenter with a Fermonster. Now, I will say total cost involved with these things. You could have bought a Fermzilla almost. Probably not with the whole pressure kit and all that stuff. But it's not necessarily a cost savings thing. It's just hey, I had this Fermonster sitting around, and I've been meaning to kind of take on this little DIY project for a while, and so here we are. So those are the pieces, and we can see the gas post obviously will be the easier one. But again, since these nuts are here, the whole thing comes apart really easily, and you can tighten it with tools really easily. And you can see this is just the post that comes out of the, the threads that come out of that post. And one goes back in there, obviously, and then the other one goes through the hole. So I'm going to put this back together. So this is the gas one. We don't need to mess with too much here. We'll just get that tightened up. I don't think you probably need to do much other than hand tighten. Can't imagine. And then this obviously goes into the lid. Crank that down. And these holes, as you can see, are pretty tight. So and that's good. You don't want it flopping around in there. And it does have, I hope you can see that, a little rubber gasket on that side. So that'll block the opening at the top. I am debating, you don't want to tighten it so much that you squash the gasket such that it, doesn't cover up the opening anymore. So just kind of get it, pretty snug. And then I'm debating putting another one in here, but I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think there's probably enough thread there to do that. But then the nut goes on this side. And it's snug enough in there. It's like, I don't think you have a whole lot of worries about the thing falling out. It's a little bit tight fit with that ring on the inside there, but it gets you there. Okay, so that's the gas post. And then the liquid post, we got to do a little bit more here. So the liquid post, what we're going to do is unscrew the double threaded part again. And then we're going to put the this part of the floating dip tube through that like this. So you wind up with the floating dip tube through the threads, or the dip tube part that doesn't float. I don't know what you call that. Through the threads, put it back together. And again, get it nice and tight. Don't have to go too crazy. Don't have to get out the power tools because there are gaskets on both sides. So just kind of snug it up and kind of make sure your poppet looks good. And then unscrew that nut. This goes through the lid. Screw that down. First time doing this, so those holes in the Fermonster lid are pretty tight. Okay, got that tightened up. They are also not totally straight, you can see, but that's probably okay. And then we would tighten this up. Okay. And then, of course, the float it attaches to this side. And then when it goes on top of the Fermonster, you got this thing hanging down. Hopefully you can see all that. And then when you put pressure on the gas side, obviously the liquid will flow out of the liquid side. So that's the idea for a more secure closed transfer with a modified Fermonster. Okay, I'm going to get this stuff all, sorry, I didn't put the spinning valve on here, but basically it'll attach on there while the fermentation's going on. I'm going to get this stuff all cleaned up and sanitized, and then we're going to put a beer in there, and we'll see it in action. All right, so for the next step in this process, got the Fermonster here filled with, I put about 3 gallons of water in here and an ounce of SantaClean, which is like Star San, but less foaming, and I find it handy, especially if you have something with volume markers, to just put 3 gallons of water, ounce, easy to remember, a little less water. Uses a little less water than Star San in this application and is less foaming. And then over here, I've got all the bits and stuff we were talking about earlier that have been Star Sand off with the spray bottle. I find it handy to have an extra solid Fermonster lid for shaking this thing around when it's full with no holes in it. Just something I find handy. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to dump this, get all the stuff assembled and ready to go, probably in backwards order from what I just said. And then we'll get the spring water over here that I'm going to use for the flash brewing kit. And we'll get this thing going. All right, we got our sanitizer dumped out of the Fermonster. I'm just leaving the closed lid on top for a second while we get all set up. I got my water behind me. And the kit I'm doing is the Cali Mountain Pale Ale kit, which is supposedly like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. If you've seen these flash brewing kits before, they're handy. Do they come out as good as all grain? Probably not, but they come out pretty good. And definitely for the level of effort you put into it, I like doing them every once in a while. And I got this one on 25% off sale, so I figured why not. So anyway, it comes with the instructions, or sorry, the This is, yeah, these are kind of the abbreviated instructions and the very cool tap handle insert. I'll put that aside. These are more detailed instructions. And then the ingredients, your flash brewing extract, dry malt extract, your hop shots to get your bitterness in there. This one comes with extra Cascade cryo hops and your flash brewing yeast. Okay, we'll get this going. I will probably just leave the camera recording and accelerate through the process of making the flash beer. The only thing I'll say is make sure and sanitize everything while you go. I got a bottle of Star San, just kind of want to sanitize scissors, sanitize the part of the bag you're going to cut off, so on and so forth, just to keep everything nice and clean, to make sure that your beer has its best chance of not getting infected. And with that, the brewing process is done. One thing I didn't think about that'll be interesting is the floating dip tube is going to kind of like be sitting up pretty high on this to get started. There's, with this type of brewing, there's a bunch of clumpy stuff at the top. So we'll see how it goes. Again, never done it before, but it seemed like a good opportunity to do this. The other thing I don't tend to do, but that I keep telling myself I'm going to do, is when I'm doing a full all grain brew day on the Brewzilla, if you have one of these kits around, extra fermenter, just kind of while you're sitting around waiting for temperatures to get up to where you need them or whatever, you can throw one of these kits together and get another beer out of the day. So I'm going to grab the other parts here, and we got all our stuff sanitizing mostly assembled. Here is the lid with the posts on it. Just going to give those one last check to make sure everything's tight. Give them another spray. And again, gas on one, liquid on the other. You can tell my holes are not totally straight here, but it's nice and sealed, and those gaskets help prevent any leaking, and nice and tightened on the inside. Again, we don't need to do anything with the liquid part at the moment, since we won't need it until the end when we need to get the beer out of there. But of course, you do have to get it assembled and in there for now. The goal, again, being so you don't have to open your fermenter again once you get the beer going. And I did a couple of these kits last year, and even did one fully temperature controlled and treated it like I would a normal beer that I made from scratch. And the other one I just kind of left in my brewery, no t-shirt or anything over it, no real temperature control other than just the ambient temperature in the brewery. They both came out pretty well. The Citra, I think it's Citra Session Pale Ale, came out really nice. That's a good beer. The other one I made was their version of Two Hearted. It was less successful. I don't know if that's because it wasn't treated quite as nicely or if it just didn't work as well for me. But so I'll be curious to see how this one turns out, because Sierra Nevada Pale Ale is one of my favorites going back to the 80s, I think, late 80s. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is just get the real, quote-unquote, real lid on here that we're going to need. Just double check, make sure everything's connected. Hopefully, I don't know how this is going to go. We'll see. It'll be interesting. The other thing I will say, if you haven't done one of these kits and you're frightened by all that sludge, it absolutely is amazing how clear the beer comes out, given where it starts. Okay, so I'm going to twist this around. Okay. And same thing here. I do have one of those Fermonster handles. You don't need to do that when you're putting it on here. It becomes more important when you're trying to get it off. Sometimes it's after the pressure's built up and so on. The other thing I will mention is keep in mind this thing is only good for up to 5 psi, so make sure and keep an eye on your spunding valve. And generally speaking, you'll probably just want to keep it open. This is not for pressure fermentation or anything else. This is just for, a DIY closed transfer setup. Make sure I'm getting this on the gas side. Let's put it this way so you can see it. And that's it. So I'm going to probably... well, that's interesting. Okay. I'm glad that happened now and not later. I don't know if you noticed, but the floating dip tube popped off the thing. It probably got twisted it around a little bit more than it should have. So maybe that's a good thing too, is keep in mind, keep your eye on that. God, I'm going to have to reach in here. Oh, well. I've been sanitizing everything. My hands are probably pretty clean. So maybe get it on. The problem is, I think once you put it back on here, as you screw the lid in, we may wind up in the same place because it does have to twist around, and since it's not flowing super nicely, so I'm trying to get down here where I can see if it's going to loosen up again. It doesn't seem to be. Maybe a little. Well, let's take another run at this and try to figure out where a good starting point is. Yeah, that's unfortunate because as you turn it, it does loosen up. Okay, different approach. I'm going to, I think what I want to do is maybe do this. That'll involve, well, I don't know. Yeah, I think this will be better. I'm going to put the closed lid back on there for, well, actually, no, I'm not. Sorry, flailing around a little bit, trying to figure out what to do here. So I think what I'm going to do is take this thing off. Maybe this is proving why this is a bad idea. But I'm going to take this thing off of there. Okay. And then, yeah, you can't really tighten it up with it. My idea was I'll leave this open and then feed the thing back up through there and then tighten it up, but that won't work either because you can't, then you can't get a hold of the nut underneath to get it tightened. So we are just going to have to try this again. And this may be a bust. Because of the fact that things won't stay on there. I do have some tiny little clips, but I don't want to make it worse by introducing another thing into the mix. Okay, I'm going to re-sanitize the lid here since I've had my mitts all over it. This tube's probably fine. Grab it without touching the beer. Yeah, I don't know. This may be a failed experiment because of the twisting involved with the lid, and I do not know how you would get around that. Okay, let's talk about how I could have done this better. And this hit me while I was driving around the other day, or actually not long after I did the video. So what I should have done here, instead of assembling everything and then spinning the whole lid around with the floating dip tube hanging off of it already, which I think caused, well, I don't think, it did cause the problem of this part here, and it probably won't do it now because it's not, with Star Sand on it's a little bit, slick. But basically this part here, as you spun that around, it came undone. Yeah, of course it's not going to do it now, but it started to slip off the this part of the dip tube. So basically what I should have done is, and I won't assemble this fully, but basically if you have this screwed in here, these ends are slightly different. So you got to do this right. Yeah, this is the right one. I won't screw it fully in there just to save time. So you have this part in here, and you would have the other post on here already too. And then basically you would leave it like this. So you just have this part of the the post in there, and then feed the dip tube, the silicone part of the dip tube, up through the hole. And then, of course, this would be hanging down in the fermenter, because then as you put the lid on there, you can kind of keep a hold of this and just spin the lid around until it gets tight. And then once that's in place, so the lid's on there now tight, then add this. Let's do it this way. And then slip it down in there. This doesn't have the poppet in it, but then put that on. So that way the lid's fixed and you're not spinning the whole thing around while you're putting it in there. I don't know why I didn't think about that in the moment, but you know, as I was filming while I was doing it for the first time, it just didn't come to mind. But that would be the way to avoid the problem I ran into. Now, as far as the leaks I'm getting, that I don't know. I need to look into that more, because that is kind of a deal breaker for this process. I am sure it's fixable. Like I said, two things. One is I'm not sure my holes are perfectly straight, or I didn't screw it in there straight. That probably would have helped. And since it was leaking out here, I don't think you need a washer on the underside or a gasket. There is not enough room because of that lip there. I would say I'm probably going to, if I do mess with this more, I'm going to notch that out so that the nut can spin a little bit more freely to make sure you get that nice and tight on the underside. But then in theory, with that, hopefully you can see that black gasket down here tight enough without smashing it to the point where you're creating new gaps, that should seal up pretty well, even if the holes aren't totally straight. So anyway, a couple things to modify there, and I just wanted to outline kind of how you would fix the issue that I ran into, where this part of the dip tube actually fell off while I was trying to assemble the whole thing. It did, you know, stay together in the end, stayed there through the whole fermentation process and while I was transferring the beer, but not ideal. So that would be the fix for that. Moment of truth for the modified Fermonster. I'm over here. I'm cutting my head off again on purpose because that is the best way for you to see the actual fermenter. I will show a clip of what I realized I should have done with the situation where the floating dip tube started to come off as you twisted the lid, and it's simple. I was just being, wasn't thinking through it clearly when I was doing it for the first time. But anyway, usual process here. I'm going to hook up a little bit of gas to the Fermonster. Again, these things are good to up to 5 psi, so you don't want to put too much gas on them or too much pressure on them. And then my usual, you know, jump line into the keg, which I'll hook up in a second here. Do the gas first. I'm just going to throw this off to the side down into some star sand to keep everything nice and clean while I'm getting ready here. All right. I will take off the spunding valve. And it's been in the fermenter about 16 days. My dog had knee surgery, and I've been behind on stuff. Wanted to do it a little bit sooner than this, but it'll be fine. We're catching up. Okay, so let me make sure this thing is okay. And this line has been purged. Make sure I'm putting on the right thing. Okay, so that's pretty much 0 psi, which is perfect. And then I'm going to hook up the beer line here. And the only thing that can really go wrong at this point is if the floating dip tube pops off of there, which it could. And I'll talk about in another segment here, after I get things taken apart and cleaned up, how I should have done it. And again, we're just doing a jumper into the outpost on the keg. And I'm using same floating dip tube in the keg. All right, so let's see what happens. We're going to turn a little bit of gas on here and see if we get beer flowing. All right, we got beer flowing. And again, just make sure you keep it nice and low. You want to transfer slow in general, but again, this thing can only handle up to 5 psi. I'm going to let it off a little bit, keep it down to like 2 or 3. So this will take a while. I do hear a little bit of leakage over here. So that may mean that you want to I may need to redo this and get a washer or a little gasket on the inside and the outside, because there is a little bit of leakage. Nothing major, but if you put your ear right up to it, I can hear a little bit of something going on. I can't tell where. In fact, why don't I just spray it with some Star San and see if we can see where the leak is. Yeah, it's down. I don't know, you can't see. Maybe it's happening on the front too. It's down where this gasket on the outside meets the lid. There's just a little gap there. On this side too, you probably can't see that one. So doesn't seal perfectly, which is too bad. But hey, live and learn. I don't know if I could have tightened those tighter or not. But anyway, we'll let it do its thing. It's not the end of the world. But not ideal either. So we'll try to do better next time. Or I may give up on this experiment and just decide I just want to get a second from Zilla. We'll see. I thought it was fun to try this, though. We got beer flowing, and we'll see how this flash brewing kit comes out. It's the, again, Cali Mountain. I'm saying again a lot today. I apologize. The Cali Mountain that is supposed to be like Sierra Nevada. Pale ale. I am sure it will pale in comparison. But it might be a good beer. I've had good luck with the other couple of kits of these I've done. And you can see my leakage bubbles. So that I don't... Yeah, anyway, we'll let it do its thing. Alright, and that's all the further I'll take it. I was messing with my bucket blaster in the background. It was not cooperating, so multitasking is good unless something, the hoses got twisted and it was starting to fall off there. So a little hectic if you saw me banging around in the background there. But yeah, so the beer transferred fine. It's crazy with that little bit of a leak, you can still see. I don't know that I would do this again. And I don't know, yeah. I may just be, when you think about, these are great fermenters. This hack probably is workable, but for me, do I want to spend the time getting it nailed down? I don't know that I do. I'll think about it a little bit more, but I think, given the challenges with it, I think I'll probably just get another Fermzilla since that works great, is designed to do what I want to do. But, it was fun to try. I'd been meaning to try it for a while. And it did the job. And if you think this is a cool hack and you are maybe more, what's the word I'm looking for? Mechanically accomplished than I am and want to futz around with this kind of stuff, you could get by a lot cheaper if you don't buy these specialized ones off of Brew Hardware. They're very nice. I'm not saying don't buy them, but I think if you got just regular posts and you are, have the correct tools to get those apart, I think that is a cheaper way to go. But this worked. The beer came out. There is there's more powdery streakage on the inside than some of the other kits I've done. But, we'll see how it tastes in a week or two when after it conditions. Again, fun experiment. We'll see how this flash brewing kit comes out. I may retire this one, just get another Fermzilla for when I want to have two beers going at once, because this is not, the results are not good enough that I'm confident in that, but it was good to try. If anybody has any tips, or, because I don't know. I mean, I can see on this one the hole is a little bit not totally straight, but also this is tightened down enough that I would not have thought, like I can't see any gaps. So maybe the holes just have to be absolutely straight for this to work. This one to me visually looks straight, and it still leaked a little bit. So yeah, not totally satisfied with the results, but fun experiment. That I hope that was of interest to you, even just to learn, hey, that doesn't pan out for me. But I do have other lids, so I could just throw a flash brewing kit in there with an airlock and siphon it out of there, which is not ideal from introducing oxygen into the process standpoint. But I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. I don't know if you can see me. And next video I have coming out, I may do a brewery tour. I haven't done that before. Sorry if I'm talking at you. I'll come down here. But yeah, we'll see how this comes about. And that's it for today. Cheers, everybody.